Hello everybody and welcome back. Doing a bit of a tier list video today as there was some discourse in the community about what is tier 1, what even is a tier 1.5 and what classifies as tier 2. So obviously this is all my personal opinion. If you have a different opinion, please leave that down below in the comments. Any criticism is welcome. But first things first, I think we got to put Kashtira as tier 1. Saw a bit of drop in performance, but I think it's still undeniably the best deck for the format. Just get tier 1 sorted out quick. Branded. Branded is one of those decks that beats Kashtira and it beats everything else below it. It just gets hard countered by some matchups like Nichiria. Nichiria is specifically designed to beat Kashtira and Branded. Nichiria Runic to be specific. Grave's Super Ancient Organism. Nichiria Beast. Runic spells drawing 3 every turn. Just kind of beats all the other mid-range strategies. Most people probably wouldn't put this in tier 1, but I really like it in tier 1. I think it's a very sleeper deck. For 1.5, we put Sprite Adventure. Sprite Adventure being able to protect the mannequin cat target like Tetsudo Iratnumen and Spellcanceller, and Jinzo for Labyrinth is really cool. The combos are really resilient as well, and it doesn't have to go the Floodgate route. You can just play the normal Yu-Gi-Oh! And it will work just as fine. Also having multiple negates, I think it's like 3 or 4 negates is like standard inboard, and that's kind of insane. Labyrinth is one of those decks. It's a trap deck, obviously, so the more people, the more prepared people are for it, the worse it gets. As people are playing more like big back row blowouts, the worse it gets. As people learn how to play against it, the worse it gets. It's just an unfortunate side effect of being a trap deck. First, your Dragon Link, theoretically, it's a really good format for it. Everything else in the format is like super mid-rangey. Games are going to turn 5 regularly. And that's kind of where Dragon Link shines, just being able to combo from very little. Unfortunately, though, the Bursteals are kind of dead for the majority of the game. There's not really a deck in the format that loses hard to Bestial. There's only really Sprite and Branded, and they're only somewhat good against those two decks. Phantom Knight Adventure DPE Predator Plant. Yes. This deck topped a regional. I think it was just kind of a fluke, to be honest. Kind of just loses to all the same thing Kashtira loses to, Lancia, Nibiru, Spear Mode, Lava Golem, etc. Dark World I'm actually going to put in tier 3. I think it's still a very decent strategy. Just has some consistency issues and can't really deal with cards like Drow and Lockbird. Dinos we're also going to put in tier 3. I think it's slightly better than Dark World. One of those decks those combo decks that just randomly just pops off somewhere. Appaloosa is a very annoying card to deal with, especially when the rest of the board is spell trap negates. Unfortunately, though, also still loses the same thing Kashtira loses to. There's like Nibiru, Lancia, Spear Mode, Kaijus, evenly matched, all of those things, and it kind of just has a hard time against those. Generated top to 1 regional in this format. I think it was just a fluke. I don't really see what Generator brings to the table that other decks don't. Sky Striker without Mystic Mine. This deck is honestly a letdown. It's surprising how hard carried it was by Mystic Mine. Its consistency issues are very glaringly obvious now. Just rogue at best. Luanderies. Luanderies with a loss of statue is a very interesting deck. It's a very competent controlled strategy at the moment. It's a shifter deck, but shifter decks aren't that great right now. It has some consistency issues, and it's also extremely fragile to hand traps. Marintis I'm going to put in high tier 3. One of those Cybers decks that just jams a bunch of non-engine cards, like hand traps and board breakers, and just has insane follow-up as the game progresses. It can run out of its extra deck cards really quickly though, which is unfortunate. Rika Sun Avalon, one of those decks that does really well in a room full of people who don't know what Rika cards do, but as people learn Rika more, the worse it gets. Like minute interactions like keeping them off of Con and Ash on Sowing really hurt the deck. Mathmech Circular. Specifically Mathmech, the deck might as well be Mathmech Circular Turbo. Mathmech is one of those decks that just plays around all the hand traps that are in the format at the moment, besides Nibiru. But there are anti-Nibiru lines, Alan Bershon with diameter underneath it as an anti-Nibiru line. You just make an access code. One of those decks that just plays a bunch of non-engine and OTKs out of nowhere. Earth Machine, speaking of OTK decks, Earth Machine is a staple rogue deck at this point. I don't think it'll be ever any higher, and I don't think it'll be any lower. It's just one of those decks that exists every format. Sortal we're going to put in tier 2. Sortal doesn't really bring a lot to the table that other decks don't, and it kind of loses to all the same things. That being said, it's still a consistent, low resource investment deck. Plays a lot like Tribrigade actually. Unfortunately, just loses to too much. I mean, there's evenly matched, there's Nibiru, there's Kaiju, Lava Golem. Like, there's just too much in the format that counters Sword Soul. Exosister, I'm actually going to put above Phantom Knight. Exosister, one of those decks that theoretically has a really good format because all of these decks interact with the graveyard in some way. But unfortunately, Exosister is a glass cannon strategy, which means that evenly matched Kaijus, Lava Golem will really hurt it. And it's sort of really vulnerable to interruption, like Ash on Martha really hurts. Draco Slayer is one of those decks that kind of fell off the face of the earth. I think this deck is significantly worse after the loss of Mystic Mine, and also Nectar Valley isn't as great this format, so kind of just rogue in the meantime. Ninjas are actually better than Exosister. Ninjas are a very cool deck this format. They have counter matchups to Kashjira, to Spry, to Mathmech, to Marincess. Really cool deck. Tierlist we can put in tier 3. I think it's slightly better than Dark World. Tierlist Kashjira has some really neat interactions it can do. Obviously fell off from its glorious tier 0 status. Rest in peace. It's still alive and breathing in the format, just not where we want it to be. I think Punk, specifically Pure Punk, which I believe is the best variant of the deck, is significantly better than Sword Soul, but not as good as Riga Sun Avalon. I think they're kind of like exactly on the same level. These Dimension Force Nationals format decks are kind of all on the same level. Punk can play around Nibiru, can play around Evenly Matched, has a good time playing around Lava Golem and Spear mode. You can engine on one monster or you can end on two, it really doesn't matter. Also one of those decks that just has like 5 million non-engine cards in it, very well situated in the format right now. Just unfortunate that it doesn't really have a good way to win in time, and in fact loses in time. Drytron I'm actually going to put in high tier 3, it's a really good format for it, besides Bell, Burstials and Kashjira and Shifter from a lot of these decks. Drytron is really well situated because uninterrupted, it just basically wins. I mean, the Dark Magician Ritual Monster, the Chaos one, locks you whole turn. You can't Nibiru them because they lock you. They basically Azathoth you during their own turn. Yeah, really well situated deck. Liberamancer make Kanka, I'm actually going to put in slightly below Drytron. Really hyped up at the start of the format, but it kind of died down as people learned how the cards worked, how the mechanics worked, and how to counter it. I think Ancient Warrior is a little bit better than Exosister, but on the same level as Ninjas. They both kind of do the same thing where they need their continuous spells to survive against Kashjira, and locking their spell trap zones hurts. Both of them do very similar things, and then that it is like interruption, board-wide interruption. So like against Kashjira it has a really good matchup, Mathmech really good matchup, Sprite really good matchup. Sword Soul is a really good matchup for Ancient Warriors. Tribrigade, one of the decks that will kind of just never die, kind of on the same level as Dark World, I think. Just one of those decks that jams like a billion hand traps, can play through a couple things, yeah. Not great, not bad. I think Owlish is on the same level as Exosister. My only problem with Owlish's format is that the meta is so diverse and there's so many different floodgates with so many different things, so you can't really just have a go as a match and expect it to work against every deck. And also Labyrinth exists in the format and Traptrix exists in the format. Both of those are better trap decks at the moment. Speaking of Traptrix, we're going to put Traptrix in tier 2. Really hyped up pack did a lot of heavy lifting for this deck's initial like deck labbing and deck theory. But I think as people figured out how to play against it, it died down. As more people started to prep for a Rise Hard Pass from Kastura, Traptrix also significantly became worse. It's like evenly matched. There's cards like Kaijus. Lava Golem really hurt it as well. Just not a great time to be a Traptrix player, but it's still a really solid, strong deck. It can win locals, it can top regionals. Scarecrow Adventure, I think, is slightly better than Bestial Dragon Link. Making this pseudo unoutable Link monster is really cool, backed up by a spell trap negate and backed up by a continuous spell that basically just says you can't target it. Really cool. Counters all of these top 5 decks. Yeah, nothing more to say to it. It just has some consistency problems. It just has some problems against blowout cards like Kaijus, like Spear Mode, Lava Golem, etc. Madolche. I'm actually going to put Madolche over here. Madolche is one of those decks that... maybe I want to put this a bit lower. Yeah. Madolche is one of those decks. It's a shifter deck. It has consistency issues. Can't play a lot of non-engine. Yeah. Loss of Ishishu monsters as well really hurt the deck. Yeah. Just one of those decks that'll kind of forever stay rogue until they get new support or until new broken cards come out for them. Shifter decks aren't great right now either. Salamangreat I actually think is low tier 3. In a room full of Kastura, it theoretically has a good matchup. Just blowing the Kastura player out the water with a bunch of non-engine cards and then killing them immediately afterwards is basically all it's got going for itself. But I mean, Mathmech and Marincius kind of just does that better. Yeah. Cyber Dragon, a little bit better than Generator. Cyber Dragon's a really cool deck right now. It's mostly a joke to be put in Rogue, but it has some really cool interactions, like a Rise Hard being a machine, so it's easily contact fusible via Cyber Dragon. Both Branded and Kastura putting monsters in the EMZ, which means you can make Mega Fleet super easily. Sprite needing its link arrows for double cross, meaning that Mega Fleet just ruins double cross. Yeah. Unfortunately, it lost a lot of its kill power after Verte got banned, because it can't easily access Chimeratech Rampage Dragon. Yeah. If you've been watching, thank you so much for watching. This has been my little tier list that I decided to make. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.